I also have reason to believe that all the footage we've been shown has been tool assisted, which makes me further believe that the game is going to be pretty hard. We'll get to that. So welcome back, friendly ghosts, friendlies, and non-friendly ghosts, of course. All is welcome. Yeah, we come here to chill the vibe, you know, and we got some more Stellar Blade interviews to go over. So let's do just that. And towards the end of this, I want to go over an example of finding out, or at least finding a key point where I could, suss out some of the mechanics of the game, like the burst. We're gonna go over this stuff, but let's read the interview first. Hope everybody's having themselves a good time, and let's just rock and roll. The gameplay seen shown so far, Stellar Blade promises lightning fast and brutal action. It's the game with its challenging fights and boss duels aimed primarily at more experienced players, or can casual players also be master the action with ease? And the response, you have to learn your opponent's patterns, and you have to learn from this behavior and think about how you want to attack the enemy. That's always a good sign every time I read that. The high octane action games aren't my style. I don't like playing those games because I like playing defense. I'm always been a defensive guy. In anything like basketball, football, or fighting games, volleyball, whatever, you name it. But also I just think defense is so cool. You get the best experience out of everything, You get like a world's eye view. I think this is their response continuing. So you have to put in effort to master different levels of difficulty. And there are other support features to help you in battles. Even if you are an action game lover, but not that skilled, you can still enjoy the game. That's how we designed it. You change the difficulty at any time, so you're not locked out of a playthrough if you choose to start on normal. That's cool, I guess. Speaking of combat, many players online often compare the action to Nier Automata. The combat of Stellar Blade is said to be somewhere between Bayonetta and Sekiro. This is the interviewer again. Perhaps, like Sekiro in Jedi Fallen Order, there'll be some kind of stance meter that needs to be broken during fights. The response, yes, you can defeat bosses using the skills very well, protecting yourself from the enemies, but then you also have the chance to maybe upset the opponent's balance. And that then leads to the link ability, which allows you to defeat the enemy in one fell swoop. Now this is new information right here. And I think what they mean by link ability, because this interview is translated, so it may not be 100% accurate, but it seems it's very well written for a translation. Thanks, Google. I think they're referring to the burst gauge right here, because I have an example that I want to show you, and it's like the first example I've been able to find of the beta gauge and the burst gauge working in one sequence. So we'll go over that later. But what they're saying is, I think what he just said right there is, early on in the game, you have like this chaining system between your abilities that can get you a kill, like off the bat, after like breaking their stance or some shit like that. It's hard to comprehend when you don't have much visual context of what's happening, Let's keep on reading. So the combat is more combo oriented at the beginning, but as you progress through the game, you'll learn parry and dodge, and then you'll learn different type of skills depending on how you need them. This makes the fight more quick and varied melee, more like a quick and varied melee. I also want to talk about the dodge and parrying later on, but we'll get to that. I have reason to believe that this game is going to be pretty hard. I have reason to believe this, based on detective work that I've done. I also have reason to believe that all the footage we've been shown has been tool assisted, which makes me further believe that the game is going to be pretty hard. We'll get to that. 60 frames per second. So it's a performance mode, there's a 4K mode, and there's like a balance mode in between. All good stuff. But here we are back to the combat. Now they did mention something about you can make your own costumes or buy them at a shop. That's this multiple time that they've said that. I wonder what they mean by you can customize your costume or make your own costumes. I wonder if that is just like you can change the color of your outfit, or you can like, it could be that you can mix and match multiple pieces of clothing, or it could be like they have like a default set of outfit wear, like a generic set, maybe like Eve's default outfit, and you can like tinker with that with different color. I don't know. It's just, we'll find out. Anyways, I'm just hoping for the Taki gear. Give me a Taki outfit. Soul Calibur, baby. We gotta live on somehow, baby. We gotta live on somehow. Keep hope alive, Soul Calibur 7. Oh yeah, there's one more interesting tidbit. They said that there are over 30 different costumes. Before they said there was 20 to 30. Now they're saying there's over 30. They're not putting a specific number on it. And besides the combat, we're going to focus on the content. For example, you fishing, you make your own. Oh yeah, we just read that. And that's the end of the interview. Cool. Cool beans. Now let's get to the good stuff. Alright, dude. We're going to watch this in super duper slow motion, aka same as before. But, no, actually slower. So we're going to frame by frame this. Is it on the highest quality? 4K, yes indeed. Okay. You can't hear it. You can't hear the game? I mean the audio? Is it because I have it muted here? Yeah, okay. This sequence right here is what I want to highlight. We're going to frame by frame this. This is an example of... Actually, I need to like full screen it because otherwise the bar is in the way. Let's look at the bottom left. If you look on the bottom left, can you see my mouse? You look on the bottom left right here. You'll see the burst gauge right here at the top. That's red. Burst beta energy, which is, let's just say this is blue. It doesn't look blue, but let's say that it's blue. Red stuff, the burst stuff is red. And that's stuff that you get when the opponent does a special move. You dodge things. Red stuff, evade. Red stuff, evade. Blue stuff, parry. Blue, parry, red, dodge, red, dodge. Basically, that's kind of what I'm summing it up as, right? Take everything with a grain of salt, but that's pretty much what it is, you know. I don't know if there's more to the red stuff, like if it includes parrying, but they specifically mentioned dodging. So everything we've been shown up until this point, I have reason to believe that it has been tool assisted. Now, there's a thing called a just evade in this game. It's ability that builds your burst gauge. And there's also parrying, which builds your blue gauge, or parrying or attacking builds your blue gauge, which is your special bar. Now, why I say I think it's all been tool assisted and why it makes me think this game could potentially be hard is because you frame by frame it, you'll see that every instance of the just evade happens one frame before the attack hits, or maybe just on the exact frame. If you look at the bar down here, look at the red gauge. He only has like 2 pips of this right here, and then it goes up, it builds right here. One frame on the exact frame potentially, or one frame before the attack hits, until that gauge actually builds and so that you just evade it. Is that the timing? Is that how strict the timing is for the just evade? Is it a 1 frame dodge? Pretty much every single dodge that they've done in this trailer, at least the ones I see like 3 dodges in this trailer, and every single one of them were 1 frame before the hit, or the exact frame of the hit. To let you know how strict of a timing that is, you think to like let's say Siegfried has a move that's like AGA, where you have to, it's so fast of an input that you basically just have to slide your hand across the controller real quick. Pop, pop, pop. You know, it has to be, you have to press 3 buttons, like pop, 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 you know, with little to no breathing time in between any one of them, depending on how good you are at sliding your hands, you know. And another example would be the electrics in Tekken, right? You have to go forward, neutral, down, down, forward, and the 2-punch button. The down, forward, and the 2-punch button have to come out on the exact same frame to get the electric. And for those who may know, if you try it out, it's not the easiest thing to do. But when it comes to doing it like in an actual match or an actual play, other things start coming into the you know, the picture. You're dealing with playing defense, you know, reacting to your opponent, trying to figure out the spacing you want to be at, checking out with the jab, when to block, when to move, when to do this, when to do that. And then comes the moment where you say, okay, it's time. I'm going to let it loose. I'm going to get this frame perfect electric. Go now. And when you got to put all of these things in the picture at the same time and then try to execute, then it becomes challenging. Another example would be perfect parries in Street Fighter 6. Those are 2 frames. You have to have a 2-frame catch window when you press the parry button for the attack to hit you in those 2 frames. In a Street Fighter 6 match, you probably will see about less than 3 perfect parries in a match, right? That's 3 is kind of on the high end. You may get like 5 or 6 in some matches where you feel like, oh, they're doing a lot of perfect parrying. But it's not uncommon for you to have no perfect parries in a match, you know, and you'll probably never get more than just a few in a match, you know. It's not that easy to do, is basically what I'm saying. So if that catch window, which is right here, where it's literally just on the exact frame that the move connects until the meter is consumed. The meter is consumed. Usually when the meter is consumed, it means that you're activating at that point in time. I don't know if that's how they configured this game, but that's usually what it means when you put in a motion for something. The meter consumes, or you know, shows the effect the moment that you triggered it and activated it. The fact that it only activates on the exact frame that it hits could mean multiple things. It could mean that's just how they have it configured, or it could mean that that's how tight the window is, or it could just mean that it was just tool assisted because they just wanted to put together highlight reels and get the footage out there, which is, you know, that's basic stuff. You know, you want to make your game look in the best possible light as possible. You know, you don't want to be like struggling trying to put together a highlight reel. You know, it's not like, you know, a bad thing, but I'm just saying, we're just speculating at this point because we got nothing but breadcrumbs to look at. So we're just speculating here. Right. So anyways, on the exact frame that it hits, the perfect dodge takes place. It builds the red stuff, aka the burst gauge. Right, she does her flips. Let's put it on slow motion and mute it. Get easier on ourselves. Right there, which is after the dodge. Look at the blue stuff. After the dodge, he goes into like a blue stuff and spins bar, which is the special attacks. Now, my understanding of this game is there is a lot of meter management in here, and after parries and perfect just evasions, you have the option to repost rather, with your skill attacks, which consume meter, like so. And maybe it's just like gets you a quicker cancel window and gets you a quicker punish. But we see that she's spinning meter right here, the blue stuff, after a just evasion. And she goes on. Does that. You might notice that right there. She also spent red stuff immediately afterwards. What point? So she spent the blue stuff for this like finching lunge attack right here, right? Then look at the red bar. The red bar kind of acts like an EX move in this scenario. Find when in the exact moment that it spins right here. So she just evaded, which was like on the exact frame that the move would have connected. And if it is, you don't know how hard that is. That's like as hard as it can get. Assuming that that is how it is, when they've been mentioning how, hey, this game, it may look simple, but it's actually kind of hard. You know, it's not as simple as it looks. If the difficulty is coming from that, and you're going to be doing a lot of this, then I can understand how this is going to be a challenging game, because that is not easy to do. It's very difficult to do, but we'll see. We'll need official, information. I doubt it's going to be one frame. That's going to make it impossible. It's going to make it impossible for pretty much everybody. But you never know. Maybe dodging isn't necessary and it's just a perk. Do you want to risk it? Do you want to go for it? I still don't know what the burst gauge is, other than you build it by dodging special attacks that the enemies do. And you can kind of spend it like an EX on your skill moves. An amplified version, kind of, or at least a follow-up chain. And what they mentioned in that article we just read about linking attacks and killing your opponent in one fell swoop, I believe this is what they meant. So perhaps you can chain your burst attacks into keeping this chain of events going. We'll go all the way to the dodge and everything. I wonder if you can chain these things after parries and dodges and kind of keep like a big chain going until you exhaust as much meter as you want to use. We don't get to see how much damage it does because the footage cuts right after this. Here we have an example of like a execution stagger type of thing. I believe these like pips, these pips were yellow, and every time you parry, I don't know if it's every time you parry, but sometimes when you parry something, a pip goes down, and it's kind of like a posture meter, like a stance meter, like in Sekiro and other games that came out after Sekiro. And so when you look at all of these pips up here, it's saying that you have to parry this many times. So it's like opening up like win conditions that you can get. I still don't know what this bar is right here. I'm kind of thinking this is just like a shield, because it says SH down here for your character. So I'm guessing that's like shield, and it'll make your damage higher. I wouldn't know, but I know for a fact that this yellow bar at the bottom is for parrying. So some bosses or some enemies have like a large parry thing, and some have like very few. So make that for what it's worth. For what it's worth, because of this huge bar, parry bar, it makes me think that parrying is going to be easier than the just evasion. You know, due to the fact that we see so many sequences where you're like parrying multiple things in a row, makes me believe that parrying is going to be, you know, much more of a common thing and potentially not as strict, and the just evade is going to be the one that's going to be really strict. I'm just guessing at this. I'm just guessing. So here we go. That's another just evasion. Let's wind it real quick. Wind it back and see if it happens on the exact frame of the hit again. See, that's he builds bar already. Because in the games like this, it's going to be hard to tell when they are to you, how close they are to you. You know, that's always an issue with 3D games. Is it kind of the depth perception can kind of be tricky. You know, so I doubt that they will make it that tight. But I won't doubt that it's going to be tight. Let's just do one of these and go back up 5 seconds. So we see the enemy doing some sort of spin. And the dodge happens right there. It seems like the player is like in a neutral state right here. Seems like the player is in some sort of neutral state right here. And right here, I'm guessing is like the dodge is inputted. I'm guessing because the stance changed so it has to be like, can't tell. Yeah, I'm gonna say that it triggers like, because animation blending is kind of like the best way to tell when you're like doing detective work. That's a big leap in animation right here. So I'm gonna say that this is the trigger point right here. Let's do 1, 2. Do you count the frames or you press it twice and it's still on the same picture? Because if we're counting the same frames, because like here I pressed it twice and it's on the same picture, right? So if we're counting those frames, let's count it like that. Right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we're counting the double frames, then it's 6 frames. Potentially. But if we're not counting those, then it's 1, 2, 3. It's either 3 or 4 frames. That sounds a lot more reasonable to me. That sounds a lot more reasonable because you have to factor in depth perception, and it's not a 2D side viewing when you can tell exactly how close they are, you know, so I think 4 frames, 3 to 4 frames sounds about right. You know. Now I'm confused about this right here. I'm confused why there's a square QuickTime event right here. I thought it was only supposed to happen after you parried and depleted their yellow gauge. But it seems like there's multiple conditions, again, win conditions here, where the shield gauge is depleted and there's this prompt right here to do some sort of critical attack. Right, and that's just normal stuff. Let's go do it normal speed from here. Okay, here's a good bit right here. I think that parries, the parries. Thank you. So here we have an example of parries happening, and the yellow pip is going to be depleting on the boss, but also pay attention to the blue gauge down here, which is and has one pip of the square, right? There's only, she has very little. Let's just say that she has very little. She has the bare littlest amount of blue stuff, and it built some. Right, so he built some, and he's losing the yellow stuff up there. Parry it again, and he's building another one. I wonder, they didn't say anything about there being a block button, did they? I wonder if there's no blocking. I wonder. Let me see the very next clip. He has a lot of blue bar. He has no yellow stuff, and he's doing like a death blow thing. And here we have another perfect dodge. I'll just call it perfect dodge. It's a lot easier for me to say perfect dodge than just evade. Here we have a case of a laser just evasion. Alright, so that's the exact moment that the meter gets spin. And here, you can't tell me she's doing any sort of pre-animation to go into like a just evasion. I don't believe there is an animation. So I think that what I did before in that earlier, the clip just before this one, I don't believe she was going into some sort of animation to like preemptively get ready to dodge. I don't think that was what was happening. Here she just like, she's in the middle of a jog, right? She's on a Saturday morning jog, and then boop, one frame, the exact frame that she gets hit is when the dodge activates. It, you know, it's hard to call. It's hard to call, but it's fun to speculate. How tight is the window to just evade? Because this is looking, if it is that tight, this is gonna be very brutal, and I'm looking forward to it because it's gonna be hype. Because I wonder if the red stuff burst gauge. I wonder if it is like an basically this game's version of the ultimate attack, like the big super climatic move, in the sense that it's hard to build up, but when you do build it up, you have a lot of damage that you're sitting on because you've done a lot of complicated and hard things, and I wonder if you can like store up and save your burst for specific fights. And that becomes the meta, or the question that the player asks themselves: do I reserve the burst gauge for this or for that? And then I gotta build this shit back up again, which is gonna be tough because I gotta do all of these, like, who knows, 1 through potentially 6 frame dodges, which anything above 2, yeah, anything above 2 is kind of like in a acceptable, kind of not that difficult range. Parrying, I believe in Street Fighter Third Strike, is 5 frames. It's like it might be like 5 to 8 frames, and I think it like varies depending on how you input it. So that's to give you another example. And it still can be a challenging in that game as well. I believe the human response could be anywhere between 8 through 12 frames. So to give you another example, because executing something in 1 frame, like an electric in Tekken, it's easy because you're the one controlling it. In Soul Calibur, it's easier because you're the one controlling it. Responding to something of that same magnitude, however, that is an entirely different beast. So, and we will see. We will see. We will see. Some of these clips, she doesn't have any red stuff. Right, she doesn't even have the bar in some of these clips. There was another example there. She's gonna build meter for parrying. Down here. Let's just try to time how much parry of a parry window you have. Doesn't look like she's going into it yet. like this is tool assisted, right? This is tool assisted. This is tool assisted for the highlight reel, which is understandable. They're not the only ones that do this. I think every company does this, right? To get like the best possible outcome, and who wants to waste time on the middleman? But this right here, she is Gohaning this orange ass fist. She is Gohaning, God man, she's just firing that shit from the hip. She has not done the parry input yet. Yeah, she's already got the pip. She already got the reward for parrying it, and she has not done the animation yet. Quick re-edit real quick. Post-edit, rather. One thing I noticed while reviewing the tape is something that is very, very important. And that's the fact that these parries do come out frame 1. I think that should have been the main talking point and the most valuable information to take away from this, is that it comes out frame 1, meaning it works on frame 1. You know, and some games you have to do it preemptively and wait for it to be active, you know. So even if you did press parry and the attack did hit you, you still wouldn't get it because you were the parry wasn't, you know, active yet. So that's one positive to take away from this, if this footage is anything to, you know, related to the main game, is that parries are frame 1 active. How big or small the window is something that we won't be able to confirm until the devs say it, you know, or footage, the tutorial or something comes out, and you know, but we do know for a fact that it comes out frame 1, and what that means is that it's going to be very responsive. That's a huge deal. Another thing, if you look at the parry in slow motion, even though it comes out on frame 1 of the hit, there's about 5 frames before the effect takes place, meaning the parry animation, the hits and the active, the visuals, the visual effect takes place, right? So even though it happens frame 1, while Eve is being hit, the fist goes through her, the parry activates on that frame, and then there's a reanimation, and there's 5 frames until you see the actual hit marker. So maybe that's a tell for how big the parry window is. That could be a tell right there. But also it's about 14-ish total, somewhere in that ballpark, before the hit spark starts to dissipate. You know, at that point it's just guesswork. But yeah, that's something that I just wanted to put in, make sure I put into the video, you know, because that is also important information and valuable in telling what type of game we're going to be dealing with, because I just think that is important information. This game is going to be responsive defensively at the release. We don't know about movement. We don't know about movement. How is moving the character going to be? That is going to play a big part in a lot of things too. And quite frankly, I don't think this game is out the woodworks yet. The most important aspect of any video game ever. The most important aspect that you want to nail down. This will make or break any game, regardless of what type of game it is. If you have a player and you control the player, this will make or break it. If moving the character around, just standard moving the character around point A to point B, walking, running, sprinting, if that basic aspect, jumping, attacking, all these counts as moving your character, if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel responsive, if it feels off in any way, then we have a problem. That is the #1 game killer, regardless of what genre you are dealing with. If moving the character feels awful, your game is going to suck. Now, there are some exceptions where like moving the character feeling kind of wonky can make the game feel better, like horror games typically, because they want you to feel as helpless as possible. And you know, that's kind of like a niche that they've leaned into, the helplessness and trying to find, you know, survival within the horrible hand that you were dealt. This is not a horror game though. And this is an action game and game that involves a lot of combat, a lot of movement, platforming. The fact that it's platforming means that it is an absolute must. The fact that they got Sony on board hopefully tells, and they got a lot of feedback, and you know, apparently there's a lot of people who have had hands-on experience with the game, and it seems that it's all been good word of mouth so far. And from the footage that we've been able to see, you know, a couple years back, you know, the uncut footage, it looks pretty solid. Obviously there are some questions as just limited footage and there's an old build. We would like to see something fresh and just get a genuine sense of it all. But yeah, that's like the only main concern really that is left, because even if the mechanics don't really all come together and work in unison, the game can still be amazing if just the simple act of moving the character around feels superb. Thanks Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Moving Sonic in 2 compared to Sonic the Hedgehog 1, night and day. A lot of people hate Sonic 1 and love Sonic 2 as if it was the greatest game of all time. Moving the character is the biggest improvement that they made for that game. It's like the only improvement that you can make to those classic Sonic. That's like the only improvement that you can make. And outside of stage progression and stuff like that, but moving the character was so important that it basically gave birth to this gigantic mascot named Sonic, and it also killed Sonic later on. But that's another story. That's just to further tell how important this aspect of your video games are. But again, we will see. The fact that parrying and dodging are frame 1 is always a good sign. Of course, there's always questions to ask, like, is there character momentum? And that can also throw it off. Like, man, my character doesn't stop when I tell her to stop. That could be a bad mark. It all just depends on a lot of how it all comes together, you know? But other than that, that's all I really wanted to share with y'all. I hope you found this, at the very least, informative or entertaining or whatever that you may have found it. We're just trying to survive and, you know, make it through this month-long wait that we have to wait until we get our hands on the game, you know. So this is the Stellar Blade waiting room, the official Stellar Blade bootlegged waiting room. I got dibs on that. I called dibs on that. Mark it down. Tell somebody to tell somebody. If there's any updates on the game, I'll probably more than likely check it out and all that type of stuff. But, you know, I bid y'all further ado. May peace be with. Always keep your heads up. This is Dos Pos. Adios. Stay cool. And if you like this content, be sure to show some love, but always be sure to show that love to the people who matter to you. This is ITOwl bidding you much love, peace, farewell, and stay cool. Deuces.
The triple kickflip. Is that shit an actual triple kickflip? This reminds me so much of like Sonic. 1, 2, 3. This bitch did a triple kickflip. Why? Someone want to tell me why that is even. Who built this? Who built this? Hot Wheels track in the middle of the sea. Alright, this is some Calypso type of shit. Anyways, I think I'm going to be playing like a lot of action adventure games leading up to this. This is basically the Stellar Blade waiting room at this point in time. I'll bid y'all further ado.